So Lyin' Ted took a really nice meeting with the RNC, Republican National Committee. Took a really, Raphael. Yeah. Raphael, straight out of the hills of Canada. 4 years in Canada, was a Canadian citizen until 14, 15 months ago.
Meet the new Trump, same as the old Trump. After promising to act more quote-unquote presidential, the candidate was up to his old tricks on the campaign trail yesterday. Does Trump have to pivot to win? With me here to discuss all of this, Andre Bauer, Trump supporter and former Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina, Neera Tanden, president of the Center for American Progress and former policy advisor to Hillary Clinton, Mary Catherine Ham, conservative, conservative, it just says conservative there on the teleprompter.
That's all I need.
Which is conservative, just conservative. Conservative writer and CNN political contributor, and Ben Jealous,
that's all I need.
Former CEO of the NAACP, who is supporting Bernie Sanders. So let's just start with this new presidential Trump. Doesn't sound all that different from the old guy.
Yeah, I have said all along, he's going to say he'll pivot to being presidential. I don't think he's capable of it. He cannot put a lid on his id. He is Donald Trump. That's who he is. Donald Trump is not an ideological creature, but he is a creature of habit and of personality, and this is what you're going to see the entire time.
No, there is a philosophy among some in the Trump camp that, let Donald be Donald, but there also is this new group, Paul Manafort and Rick Wiley and others, who think he does need to rein it in a little. What do you think?
Donald Trump, for once, we have an authentic candidate. That's why he's attracting so many new folks. The Republican Party ought to be elated that they're getting all these new people in, the big tent theory, because the Democratic Party has done a better job of attracting new voters. And so you've got a candidate now that's authentic. Yes, he's not scripted. Yes, he hasn't been to the political school where they teach you how to do everything just right. And that's what's so refreshing about Donald Trump.
You look like you have something to say, Neera.
He's definitely not been to a school where they teach you what to do all right. I'm sure that's true. But I would say, I think what's happening here is a delicate dance as far as I can see. You have Trump trying to, or forces saying Trump is trying to be more presidential. He's taking some moderated positions on North Carolina and other issues, and still in the heart of a primary. So you see Cruz trying to attack him on those more moderated positions. So I think it is a hard thing to try and move to the middle on some issues and then also take all this coming from the right. So it'll be an interesting balance to see whether he can do it.
Well, and the thing about that, though, is I don't think we shouldn't pretend that it's strategic, him taking these positions. The positions are based on whoever's asking him at a given time and whatever he feels at a given time. Yeah. I don't think it's a pivot. It's just what Donald Trump feels at that moment. Authentic, maybe, but not actually consistent.
There are folks trying to get him to be more palatable to the mainstream Republican establishment. Good luck, but they're trying.
Yeah. Do you think that Donald Trump will be a tough general election candidate against whomever the Democrats pick?
I've said time and time again that when you have a conservative celebrity, people always say they're a joke, and they often win. I mean, you can go all the way back to Ronald Reagan. You can go back to Gopher, who ran for Congress, Fred Grandy. You can go back to Jesse the Body Ventura, Arnold Schwarzenegger. We thought in California that Cruz Bustamante would clean Schwarzenegger's clock because he would be the first Latino governor. It didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
So we have to take them very, very seriously.
So you, Andre, just to make sure I understand you think that let Trump be Trump, that he got as far as he did, speaking his mind, and no attempt to rein him in is going to be successful.
Look, there's always ways you can say, hey, you ought to try to do this or try to do that, but the guy is attracting record numbers. He's probably going to win this before you go to Cleveland. And before. He probably is going to have the delegate count. Look what happened in New York. Cruz was running around hoping he wouldn't get 50%, saying, if he doesn't get 50%, the guy gets over 60%. He's on fire, and it's because people are starved for a leader that isn't saying the same old thing.
Just to be clear, Donald Trump has the highest negatives amongst the broad electorate of any candidate ever.
True.
So we can talk about the past, but the reality is women, Latinos, the broad group of the electorate.
Those
Electorate.
negatives just
A
keep
couple things.
bringing
But this is
people
a-
out.
he's
this is
very
a race
popular
where
amongst
folks with very
Republicans.
high negatives are doing quite,
not even
are
very
doing
popular
quite well.
amongst
Right, Hillary Clinton is second worst
I
in the
think
race.
she's third, actually,
Yes,
with
but
Cruz.
behind Cruz? Okay.
is actually more negative.
Mazel tov. Yeah, what were you gonna
I
say?
think you may have seen the peak of the celebrity
Yeah.
cachet in the primary, and the general electorate, of course, is different. Now, we've seen him turn around his numbers before, as he did in the primary. So I think there's always a chance of that. But the question with Donald Trump in a general has always been, can he add more than he subtracts? And I think if you look at his negatives, the answer is no. He may be able to mix up the map a bit,
Let's-
but
Here's the thing.
it's pretty risky.
I want to go to something that you all prepared for, which is assuming that Donald Trump gets the nomination, and I know that is a huge assumption,
Yeah.
nothing guaranteed, but assuming he gets the nomination, whom would you recommend he pick as his vice president, Mary Catherine?
Okay, so there's a great piece at The Federalist by my colleague Molly Hemingway on this, who says, I want to give her credit for this idea, double down on the reality star thing. Mike Rowe.
CNN star.
He's been speaking for this working class voter longer than Donald Trump has. He's very, very likable, perhaps particularly with women, where Donald Trump has a problem. Just go for it.
Okay, and if there were a second choice, who would you?
Second choice, I think Newt Gingrich has shown some affinity for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He fills in a lot of the gaps that Donald Trump doesn't have when it comes to policy. He's been a conservative for many years and in the movement for many years, with missteps here and there, has some reputation of.
Okay, in our premature Veep stakes, who would you pick for Donald Trump?
Look, I would go with Mike Steele, the former lieutenant governor of Maryland. And I would go with him, quite frankly, because I think he would kind of dull the edge of Donald Trump's hatred. He's somebody who is, a big tent Republican, and who folks, people of color, blacks, Latinos, you pair him with Donald Trump, might think perhaps Donald Trump is capable of shifting towards humanity.
And what about you, Andre? Who would you pick?
Well, of course, I'd pick me.
Okay.
Well, we're talking about lieutenant governor.
We didn't prepare that graphic, so why don't you tell us who you actually
Well,
picked?
I think you're going to see something different. I think what he will do is he won't go with the norm that you pick a battleground state and you pick somebody from that state or a rival candidate. I think he's going to say, who can help me get the job done?
Yeah.
And I think he needs some balance. And I like Mary Fallin for that reason. She's been in the private sector.
The governor of Oklahoma.
Yeah, she's been in the real estate business, but she's been in Congress. She's been a 3-term lieutenant governor. She's been a highly successful governor, cutting the pension deficit in half, dealt with national disasters. An articulate, well-spoken, attractive woman that can balance Trump, I think, is the perfect VP
And
candidate.
Nira, who would you pick for Donald Trump?
I think it's premature on both sides.
Yes, of course. It's very premature. That caveat.
Actually, I think the single issue here is that the Republican Party seems to be broken, and so I think that he has to take someone who's running, and Ted Cruz is a person who represents conservatives. He's gotten the second most votes. If you're thinking of putting your party back together again,
So we've gone from double down on reality stars to double down on broken.
All right, there you go.